What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to our second Pay-Per-Viewpoint predictions podcast from the Smark Moment Smack Talk. Over here, of course, I am Tony Mango, joined as always by Robert A. Felice.
WrestleMania, baby! Woo!
And Callum Wiggins.
Oh, I'm so ready for the biggest event of the year for wrestling fans. You ready for this episode of Dynamite where they overtake Nitro in the history of television episodes? That's gonna be fantastic.
Tonight is Dynamite, but we do have WrestleMania 41 coming up this Saturday and Sunday. And as we are always doing here, we're giving you our full rundown of our predictions, our preview, our thoughts on things that might be added to the card and some changes and tweaks and anything else along those lines. And we always want to know what you have to say as well. So drop your thoughts in the comments section below on YouTube. Make sure that you also hit the like button. Make sure you are subscribed, ring that notification bell, get those email alerts for when we go live for the post shows for these. And potentially some other stuff too. I'm kind of debating about maybe doing something live related to the Hall of Fame, just to kind of like keep everybody up and awake around 1 a.m. Maybe just doing that on Discord rather than on like the YouTube channel. I don't really know. I haven't figured it out yet. Maybe doing that as part of a Darkcast thing. It's all kind of up in the air. Let me know if you have any ideas about what you want us to do. If you are on YouTube though, and you want to help us out on the monetary side of things, make sure that you click on the thanks button, or that you click on the join button, which is the YouTube channel membership. And it's the same stuff as that is over on patreon.com/SmarkOutMoment. If you want to pick up merchandise, Redbubble and TeePublic is where you can get that for Smark Out Moment, Fanboys Anonymous, and A Mango Tees. I already mentioned the Discord, but I'll bring that up on the screen for you right now. If you want to join our Discord, I'm adding more and more things, and we're doing more and more with that than ever before. So I want to try to build that up a little bit more. And, you know, I mean, if we get to a point where we start having like nitro boosts and stuff, then the more that we have, the more flexibility, the better that it'll be, the more fun we can have over there. So join the Discord, chat it up. And when you go through everything with WrestleMania, you know, we got the different channels for the pay-per-views and stuff like that. That's a good spot for you to do that. Who knows? Maybe somebody's even going to host it or something. I don't know. I can't really quite say that. And I can't promise anything, but you never really know. That's kind of the whole point. Now, WrestleMania week is insane. And part of the chaos of WrestleMania week is the NXT Stand and Deliver stuff, which we already talked about before. So go back and check out the Pay-Per-Viewpoint predictions for that. And of course, I already mentioned the Hall of Lame is coming up in the future and all, so keep all that in mind. But we do have 2 nights of WrestleMania to break down here. We have 13 confirmed matches, and then one that we kind of are assuming is gonna be happening, but it's all up in the air, and also we'll get around to that. I think that's happening on Sunday, though, so we're gonna go Saturday and then Sunday afterward. At the moment, I feel like Saturday is pretty locked down. I think that there might only be maybe one thing that could potentially change from that based off of SmackDown. But there are 7 matches on Saturday's card for right now. And the order of it, I don't know. We're going to bounce around all the here and there. But I think we're all kind of in agreement. We think, for the most part, and if you disagree with me, of course, like feel free to speak up and say, "Hey, don't talk about me" in that regard. I think Gunther versus Jey Uso for the World Heavyweight Championship is probably starting off the night. You guys agree?
I agree. Does Callum agree?
It's a fair option.
I mean, given the group of matches that we have, I can't imagine any other match happening like that because
the alternative is that they get Tiffany and Charlotte right out of the way. Get it out of the way.
The quick rundown of this card for anybody who's just like, front load this. There's Gunther and Jey Uso for the World Heavyweight title. Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair for the Women's Championship. LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu for the United States title. The War Raiders against the New Day for the World Tag Team titles. 2 non-title matches of Jade Cargill versus Naomi and Rey Mysterio versus El Grande Americano. And then the match we know it's already the main event, the triple threat match, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. So it's definitively not the triple threat match that will start things off. And I kind of can't imagine like, all right, WrestleMania is going to start off and it's going to be Jade against Naomi or LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu necessarily. Stratton and Flair, I don't think that the public reaction to it is like how they want to start. So I'm thinking they start with Jey Uso and Gunther, because it's not only a match that is going to get the crowd super into the beginning of it from Jey coming out, but spoiler for my prediction already, I am assuming Jey Uso wins the championship. And if they start off WrestleMania with the World Heavyweight title changing hands and a big like underdog story thing going down, nowhere near as big of an underdog story as they think that they're doing, I'll say that. But that is probably their best case scenario. And if it starts off with Gunther retaining, I will be incredibly shocked. But I think this is kind of like, all right, WrestleMania starting. Let's get, after 3 friggin' hours of the pre-show, which is absolutely unnecessary, let's wake up the crowd again by having Jey Uso's theme start.
Well, I think it's bold of you, first of all, to assume that they really feel the need to wake up the at-home watching crowd, because the crowd in the arena would be pretty awake by the time the show's getting started, because they haven't sat through 3 hours of a pre-show. They would have just been, getting into the arena and getting into their seats. But I think Jey Uso's probably winning here. I say probably and not definitively, because there is always a chance that they just go, hey, Gunther's great. Just gonna keep it on Gunther. But it feels like everything in this story is leading to a big yeet moment, and everybody's yeeting, and Michael Cole can say yeet 500 times. The build to this match has been half really good and half like, what are we doing here? Because Gunther, last 3 weeks, has turned it up where he needs to be. I love the promo on Monday where he just basically said, "You're lucky I zip-tied you to the ropes while I beat your brother bloody, because otherwise I would have drowned both of you in his blood." I think that's where he needs to be. And I think it's going to be harder for Gunther coming out of this as a loser than it would Jey Uso. But that being said, I think Uso has to win, because it's, it's a feel-good moment at WrestleMania, and I think that means more to the people running the show than anything else. I hope it's one of Jay's better matches. And I know there's been a lot of focus on the fact that his matches aren't always great, but I'm hoping Gunther brings it to the level where it needs to be, and they get the good match out of Jey Uso and a nice title change.
So the match itself is not something to be particularly excited about if history is anything to go by. Just they have had a match already for the World Championship a couple of months ago, and nobody talks about that because nobody really remembers what happened in that match, let alone like whether it was good or bad. I'm sure it was fine. As I say, I don't think I watched it, so like I imagine it was okay. I didn't hear like it was an absolute disaster, but I also didn't hear, oh, they should really run this match back at some point. So we know Jay's somewhat limited, but the crowd reaction he gets is huge, so that's the primary reason why he's here. You're going to get a whole stadium of people doing the posing and the chants, so that is the moment in which they're looking to encapsulate from this. So the match itself is pretty much a byproduct of that, really. It's the entrance and the celebration when Jay inevitably wins the title.
Bridging the gap.
Yeah, exactly. That's just the little that's the messy part in the middle that we have to get through to go from one side to the other of this
That's
equation.
Unfortunate for Gunther.
Well, that's just what Gunther's lot in life is a little bit, where he can be presented as a dominant monster heel champion, but we know what happened this time last year. He lost his Intercontinental title reign at WrestleMania as well, that long stretch, and now he's going to be likely losing his World Championship reign here as well. So this seems to be what Gunther will be going forward, is, win title around about SummerSlam, second half of the year, hold it till WrestleMania, lose to babyface. That's probably what his future will be. So yeah, I think that the likelihood is that Jay will win it. I don't know what happens beyond that point, because I just don't think that the Yeet thing is super sustainable if his match quality doesn't improve. Because even though match quality doesn't matter as much in WWE as it does in, say, an AEW or New Japan or another promotion like that, it's still eventually it does catch up to you if you're having bad matches. And Gunther can pull a great match out of Jey Uso. Probably, he's one of those types that if this is going to be the best match of Jey Uso's career, it's likely to be against someone like a Gunther. So he can do that, and maybe it will be a lot better than we're anticipating based on the build and just Jay's overall performance. But then when you have to have Jay defending the title against, I don't know, Dominic Mysterio, that's when you start getting a bit worried about, oh yeah, these matches suck a bit. But yeah, I think that the likelihood is that Jay will win the title here.
And they have a blueprint to get them through this match. And I would look at the first Lesnar-Roman match from 31, exactly 10 years ago, actually, where, you know, Roman was limited and was doing the super babyface thing, and Brock just took him to Suplex City. And the match itself was where they needed it to be. You know, Roman got bloodied, Brock just dominated. The only difference is this time around, they have to have an ending that doesn't involve someone cashing in. And I think it'll work. I don't think Jay will be champion for long. I'll say that.
Yeah, I assume that this is one of those things where even if WWE were honest, they would be like, all right, well, we want the entire stadium to be doing his entrance and to be celebrating that he won the title, and the rest of it, whatever. Where, like, they could even have him drop the title within, like, a month, and it wouldn't be super shocking to me. Of course, he has to win it first. There's not a guarantee that he's going to win it, but I feel like it's one of the few matches on WrestleMania that it's like, all right, 100% it's going to be Jey Uso. I would bet more on this match than I think every other match for the most part, except for maybe one of them, the other main event. But even then, it's kind of up in the air. So I'm not particularly looking forward to the match as far as like just bell to bell and ring action. I don't think that they're going to have the best match of the night, let alone the best match of the weekend or anything. But yeah, people are going to be happy to see a title change, and people are going to be happy to see Jay win that championship and all. And then they'll be able to say that he's a champion in the future, even if it doesn't really work out in the grand scheme of things. It's kind of crazy though. Sorry about my clearing my throat today. It's kind of crazy that somebody like a Jey Uso is in the position that he's in right now, whereas a couple years ago, a guy like a Shinsuke Nakamura comes in, wins the Royal Rumble, and it's like, well, we can't put the belt on him. And it's like, okay, but then Jay is all right, fine. The entrance.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear. We don't know if they're gonna go through with Jey Uso. They do like Gunther enough that they could say it's still Gunther. He did hold the Intercontinental title for 666 days.
I still think he shouldn't have lost that last year to Sami Zayn. I thought it was a mistake heading into the match. I thought it was a mistake having him lose it. And then I think nothing in the past year has been like, I would have been more fine, honestly, knowing what we know now. If you show me this card right before WrestleMania last year, I would be like, well, I'd rather Gunther just retain the Intercontinental title and be walking into Mania 41 as Intercontinental Champion. That's just me, though.
One of the things about this particular Saturday card that really sticks out to me, and I'm wondering if there's like maybe they take Easter very seriously in that Bloodline, but all the Bloodline is on one night, and they're all on Saturday. Naomi, Jacob, and Roman, and Jay, they're all just getting their stuff out of the way. And at first I thought, which I've said many times on the podcast and off the podcast, well, Jay can be on night one because the winner of the triple threat can fight him on night two. But now I'm just thinking, I wonder why they just want to get all of their stuff out of the way on Saturday night.
I don't think there's really anything to it. I think it's just kind of the way that they positioned the card ended up playing out that way. Because I think they could very easily just swap LA Knight, Jacob Fatu with the Intercontinental title match or something. or the Sin City street fight.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything to do with like the family-based aspect of it, because fundamentally the Naomi thing doesn't matter because Naomi's never been treated as a member of the Bloodline anyway. And then they just decided, okay, we're going to put the world title match on this one because the WWE title match is the main event of the other show, so we have to put the world title match on the other show. So it's a matter of circumstance.
Which, by the way, Naomi turns heel after the Bloodline becomes babyface. It's like
after the Bloodline it dissolves. Basically, it doesn't really it's a thing anymore.
Yeah. One of the other Bloodline things, though, is Jacob Fatu against LA Knight for the United States title, and I'm flabbergasted for why, for the third year in a row, Solo Sikoa is at best going to accompany somebody to the ring.
Okay, well, I'll get this out of the way real quick. Tony said he's 100% sure that Uso's beating Gunther. That's not the 100% sure match. This is. Jacob Fatu will win the WWE United States title from LA Knight. I don't know why Solo Sikoa is not on this card. It baffles me, and it's not like I'm a Solo Sikoa stan, but if a guy is the top heel from the day after Mania 40 through January, literally to where he's headlining shows, he's beating Roman, he's doing all these things, and you can't find a spot for him at WrestleMania, either you're admitting that you failed booking him, or you're telling him, geez, you're just so bad that we don't even want you in the ring at WrestleMania. I don't know how this man is not booked. I think he should be. I think it's weird that you can't find a spot for him. But that being said, yeah, Jacob Fatu is going to squash LA Knight. I don't know if it'll be a squash, but it will be in my mind.
See, I don't think it's 100% guaranteed, because I could very well see a scenario where Solo accidentally costs him the match.
Man, if they do that, and it's just let's drag out Samoan tensions even greater, that's annoying. Because if you're gonna have them fight, at least have them fight over the United States Championship, so the belt matters. You know what I mean? Like, come on. I don't even want to see that. That would make me very frustrated beyond anything else Solo Sikoa has done at WrestleMania, including jabbing Cody in the throat at 39.
I mean, you made the argument about like that Solo should be on this card. I disagree. I think that what Rob says is true. That this is an admission that both, or a mixture of, or both, that they failed with the push of Solo Sikoa, and that Solo's not good enough to make it on this card. Which I think both is, based on the past year's performances, is accurate. He just hasn't worked. He never worked out as a top baby face. He was never taken seriously. His performances were bad, and he's and it's a mixture of the fact that he was poorly booked and poorly positioned by the company, but also that his performances itself have not been very good. And they clearly have demonstrated that Jacob Fatu is far more interesting prospect, a far better worker. And so, yeah, that's the hand they've decided to go with now. Solo Sikoa works better as a enforcer. That's the only kind of role in WWE where he's actually thrived. So yeah, and I can realistically see Jacob Fatu winning because, again, he is super popular in a way which is like, he's still a heel, but he is deemed as a really exciting worker, so people like to see what he does. He's a killer. The stuff that he's done with Braun Strowman has been very good. So, yeah, I'm not... I would be very surprised if LA Knight was to walk out of here victorious. Because I just don't see the reason of having Solo Sikoa turn on him as well, because they just haven't done a lot of stuff. Like, they've obviously done, like, fractures between them, but I think that Jacob Fatu needs to win the title and then assert himself a lot more as the big guy in that group before, like, Solo Sikoa gets jealous and tries to take it away from him.
Yeah, for the record, my prediction is LA Knight's dropping the title, but I just think that knowing WWE, the way that they sometimes take a really long road to get to the same destination as if they could have just gone the straightforward route, you would think it would just be as simple as Jacob Fatu beats LA Knight, he's the United States champion, and then going forward, he fights a couple people and then eventually starts fighting Solo. But they didn't go with what I thought they were going to go with here, which I thought that they were going to do another, triple threat or fatal 4-way or something, and it was going to be Solo, and then maybe Braun if he would have been involved, because he was the other guy that was kind of like completing this quartet. But even just if it would have been LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu versus Solo Sikoa, that would have been a means to get him on the card and to tell the story of like the typical breakdown of like, hey, no, I should be the United States champion for the family and not you, and that kind of a thing. But they're purposely not doing that, which either means they're not doing it because they don't want to tell that story, and this whole idea of like the tension between Jacob and Solo is either not going to mean anything and it's like manufactured for nothing, or that they're like, well, we don't want to do that now. We want to wait for it. And when they wait for things, there's no telling in WWE how long they'll wait, how little the logic will be, and whether or not they'll actually go ahead and do it. Because we've had so many things in the past that have been like, tease this thing that we never actually want to do, or tease this thing that we'll get around to, and if we don't, oh well, plans change and all. Things aren't quite the same now compared to when they were under Vince McMahon. Some things better, some things worse. And with the Fatu LA Knight thing, the only thing that I can say is if they don't put the title on Jacob Fatu here, I can only imagine the reason why is because they, for some stupid idea, think that it's better to drag it out and that he'll win the title either on SmackDown in the next couple weeks or at Backlash. And we don't know yet when the draft is taking place either. We know it's supposed to roughly be around that Backlash time frame, but they haven't confirmed it in any way. And at this point, the United States title, the World Championships, all the belts are named in a way that they can move. And somebody like an LA Knight could go to Monday Night Raw. Well, if he needs to drop the United States title beforehand, then he needs to drop it beforehand. Like, there's all those things that, like, we're not privy to that information. So the closest thing I can think of saying, like, a, pretty sound, safe bet for this is, yeah, most likely Jacob Fatu is winning the championship. And then the rest they'll figure out, or they just won't, but they think that they will. And I kind of can't imagine LA Knight retaining here unless it's just some stupid drag out methodology, which I really hope that they don't do because it never really works out. So Jay wins the title, Jacob Fatu wins the title. Seemingly a good night for the Anoa'i family and all, and the bloodline, but I cannot say that Naomi is beating Jade Cargill. Not a chance. Jade wins. It's not going to be a long match. It's not going to be a fantastic match. It's a match that I don't even necessarily think should be on the card, but, then again, who am I to argue that the much more entertaining United States champion on the women's division should get a match instead, right?
I see. I just think that there's a way to do things where they all get on the card. But, Naomi and Jade, I like this because this is something I've been asking for at least the past 3 years on these podcasts, which is women should be able to have non-title matches at WrestleMania. They should, just like the men have random grudge matches, women should be able to do that too. They've accomplished that here with some, pretty good character work from Naomi, a lot of overacting from Bianca Belair, which is tremendous in some ways and, just funny in others. But I don't think this is cut and dry for Jade. I can see Jade winning, but I can maybe see a situation where Naomi gets the better of her and weasels out of it and continues on as a heel.
Yeah, this is 100% Jade Cargill's winning. like this, you don't do this. This is their opportunity to try and push her as a singles babyface act. I think this match is going to be bad. Well, the only way it's not going to be bad is if it's only a couple of moves and Jade just wins. I can imagine it could just be a lot of smoke and mirrors where Jade just throws Naomi around ringside for a little while, throws her in the ring, hits the Jaded, gets the victory. I don't think we're because of the way that the Jade Cargill was built and the way that she looks, means that I can't really buy into babyface in peril Jade Cargill. In the same way that, like, China, when she was a babyface, and China was different because China was super over at that point. I don't think Jade has that level of overness or crowd support where she will get the sympathy needed against Naomi playing heel. So I think the dynamics of the match are going to be a little bit off. I'd say Rob's definitely right. You need to have more normalize women's feuds which are non-title related, and so it's good that this is happening. I don't like that this match is the one that's going to break that. Is going to be the one that's breaking that trend, because I just don't think Jade Cargill's very good. I don't think she's improved at all since she joined WWE from AEW. And so yeah, we'll just have kind of like this is going to be the return of the Jade Cargill AEW 2-star classic.
Now, with the other non-title match that's happening on this show, this night in particular, you got Rey Mysterio versus El Grande Americano, aka Chad Gable. They have not done any kind of stipulation for this. This is not a mask versus mask match or anything, which means that the feud is going to continue. This character, this luchador thing, will stretch past WrestleMania unless they just for some reason drop it out of nowhere, which would be kind of surprising. But with the idea in mind that it's not anything at all related to the masks, like it's not like if it's, you know, if they don't want to do mask versus mask, if it's not that, then they could end up doing just, if I beat you, then you have to show that you're Chad Gable or something. That's the end of this feud. And without that in any fashion being mentioned prior to, you know, I mean, it's Wednesday right now that we're recording this. They didn't say anything on Raw about that. And these are two Raw guys. So I highly doubt that they're going to just like add that stipulation during the pre-show or something. To me, that speaks volumes. That means that El Grande Americano is going to win. It's probably going to be through this little steel plate or whatever it is that he's putting in his mask that they've been showing for the past like 2 weeks, I think. He'll do that. He'll win. The feud will continue, and then it'll be the mask versus mask or whatever match. Probably either on Raw or at Backlash. I don't think it's going to last like past that point.
Excited for this match. I'm glad Chad Gable is getting a match on WrestleMania. I think the gimmick is silly. I think, you know, elements of it are outdated and stupid, but I'm glad he's getting a match. I'm glad he's fighting Rey Mysterio. I think if Rey wants to have a fantastic match, this could be one of the more fun matches Chad Gable's ever had in WWE. But I think we're getting a full... I don't know who's going to be the other guy, but I think we're getting full Doink the Clown WrestleMania 9, where someone else is in the basket. It's not Chad, but, you know, they do a quick switch so Chad can put the mask back on after making it seem like, you see, it's not me. I told you I wasn't El Grande Americano. And he does get the win on Rey Mysterio. But I think it'll be fun.
With that in mind, before we, Callum, before we give you your thoughts about this, I want to not lose track of this. If they do that, and there's somebody else dressed up as El Grande Americano, who do you guys think would be the most ridiculous option, and then the most, like, you know, worthwhile, actually makes sense kind of option?
Well, the most ridiculous option would be Dom, who, you know, he's got tattoos and you can see it's Dom. And I think the most realistic option would be Jeff Cobb.
Well, they pulled him out of New Japan so he could play, he could put on a mask.
He looks just like Chad Gable.
And play an American character when he's from, he's Polynesian, right?
He's from Hawaii. I think he's American.
Yeah,
he's from
Hawaii. So. Yeah, but still, like...
he's absolutely American.
Yeah, I can't I can't lie. I don't know enough people in the WWE roster to really know who would switch out for Chad Gable nowadays. So nobody springs immediately to mind. So I think they'll just do, you know, the big hoorah American entrance. He'll probably come out with something like super patriotic, as the entrance. I can imagine that he, outside of like the main event, he'll get the most grandiose entrance of the entire night. Oh yeah, Charlotte will get fireworks. I forgot Charlotte's on this card as well. So Charlotte will go. But yeah, it'll be like the main entrances will be like Jey Uso eating stuff, and then the main event, Charlotte Flair gets fireworks, and then it'll be El Grande Americano draped in red, white, and blue coming down. Yeah, the match itself should be good because it's Rey Mysterio versus Chad Gable, so it's going to be a fun match regardless. But yeah, it's a silly angle. As you say, there's no mask stipulation attached to it, so the likelihood is that you get Americano wins to start with. Maybe they even do some sort of tease thing where like the mask does get taken off and we see Chad Gable's face, but he gets the mask back on and he just refuses to admit that it was him. He just said, "No, that wasn't me." Everyone's just like crazy. Like that's
my brother, Tad Gable.
Yeah. Maybe he even does something where he says, like, "Here's a photo of the moment the mask got removed," and he just photoshops someone else's face over him instead,
like R-Truth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just photoshops R-Truth, or he photoshops I don't know. Yeah, like even something like just crazy, like Vin Diesel or something like that. Sort of, just not even wrestler related, but. Yeah, I think that's probably the route. As Tony says, that's probably the route they'll take because they need to set. This is one that will continue post WrestleMania, I imagine.
I think it would be absolutely hilarious if they had somebody else come out there pretending like they're him, and it's somebody that's so blatantly not remotely close to his body shape and all. Like it's like, oh no, that's actually El Grande Americano, and it's like. I don't know, say like Ivar. Ivar wouldn't, he's in the other match, but like
it'd be fun if it's Omos.
Yeah, like Omos, like great example. And it's like
he's not even American as well, so that would be even funnier.
Yeah. So this guy that doesn't look the slightest bit like him, and then they try to play that off. I do think that there's a chance that they could try to do something with the Creed brothers, doing something like that. But I mean, whatever they do, whatever the plan is, Chad Gable is going to win this match, and it's going to be a thing that they continue going forward and all. So there aren't any stakes. There's nothing on the line. Ray can easily lose, and it's no big deal. So I think they go in that direction. I don't know where on the placement of the card that they would put this, because I don't think that that's necessarily like
after the opener.
I was just going to say, I don't think this is necessarily like the second match, but it could be as a means to follow Big Jey Uso win and then, boo, now a heel wins or something. It could be a match that they put after Jade and Naomi if that match doesn't particularly do super well, because this match will be a little bit better in the ring. I don't know. The World Tag Team titles, as I mentioned, are on the line. Erik and Ivar against Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. This is a feud that I do not think deserves to be on WrestleMania over the SmackDown Tag Team division whatsoever. They rushed this with basically nothing because the New Day were starting to build up some steam with that heel turn, and then they just sort of dropped them off the face of the earth for the month and a half or whatever it was. Then tried to pick them back up and just went, how about they fight the War Raiders for the titles? And then we just have it be a DQ, and then now they're having another match. It's the lamest way of doing things, because this isn't even like a no DQ thing or something. And it's like when they announced that, the announcement came from Adam Pearce saying essentially the New Day brought the steel chair into the ring, and they think that they somehow deserve another shot. And the War Raiders are mad about the steel chair thing, and they want to rectify the situation as far as being like, okay, well, we're going to really go to war now. And it's all like, yeah, now things are going to go down in a regular fucking tag team match. Like, if you're going to put zero effort into this and you're going to introduce a no disqualification angle to it and say that it's going to be an even bigger fight with more violence, you don't do a regular tag team match. You do a turmoil thing, or you do a last man standing, or it's not wouldn't work for the tag team, but
match before. Didn't they do a Viking match? I swear they did.
I think that they did something with that where they had the shields and stuff.
Wasn't it with the New Day too? I'm looking.
I don't know.
Yeah,
might have been Street Profits.
No, it's Kofi Kingston versus Ivar in a Viking rules match in October of 2023.
Huh.
So yeah, just do that.
Yeah, Viking rules, whatever, War Machine, something or other, like, you know, something fun with it. But they decided, fuck it, we're not going to bother. So I'm just assuming New Day wins the titles, and that's like, for two great tag teams, this not only doesn't deserve to be on the card over the SmackDown side of things, but it's also just they didn't give them shit to work with.
Look, stuff happens in wrestling and sometimes stories get derailed. I don't know what happened here, but when New Day turned on Big E, that was a huge moment. That was a story that people actually cared about. You know, I don't know why they took that and just said, all right, now you're just like everybody else on the roster. Let's strip you of your character. Let's give you a shitty Def Rebel theme. You know, now you're just everybody else on the roster. When they can do better. And I think they should win the tag titles here because they're probably overdue for another run. And at least that'll shake things up to a degree. And maybe they can, you know, shake up the tag division. They can get a run with the Machine Guns or something after the draft. But yeah, it sucks that this is all they've got. By the way, the Motor City Machine Guns should absolutely be on this fucking card. That's neither here nor there. WrestleMania SmackDown doesn't fucking count for anything.
No,
because you put the word WrestleMania in front of SmackDown doesn't magically make it a third night of Mania.
And it really should be Pretty Deadly, DIY, Street Profits, and Motor City Machine Guns. I mean, Bella Don't Miz just started to get involved in this, so I wouldn't count them in there. But like those four tag teams, because fuck Los Garza, they were never a big part of this. Those four tag teams should be having some kind of like four-way or something. It's really a shame.
I think one of the few positive things about this WrestleMania from my perspective is the fact that Miz isn't booked on the card.
Well, yeah, we're not. We don't need to book Miz, but I really do think that like the Machine Guns should have they should have found a spot. And the reason I
agree with that one.
The reason I say this comfortably is because yes, I understand the importance of television shows. I get it. But this bastardization of like we're just gonna tack on the WrestleMania branding and tell you it's good enough sucks for the wrestlers like the Chelsea Greens, who should absolutely be on this card defending her brand new championship so you can establish that there's more spots for women. And the Machine Guns, they should be here. The whole reason they signed, and they're one of the few acts that can get away with it, is like, hey, look, we literally did everything else. Can we go do WrestleMania? Sure, that sounds great. And then you don't put them on WrestleMania. What the fuck?
And you got to imagine that it's a combination of WWE being like, well, we're too focused on a few of the other things right now, so we just lost track of this. And them being like, The Rock changed all the WrestleMania stuff, so we had to, you know, for some reason we didn't plan out any kind of back plans or, you know, the B stories or whatever. So now we're in a rush and sorry, things just get lost. But also, and they do this all the fucking time, hey, it really does matter that we really need to make sure that we have important matches on TV. And look, it's just, you could do it next year. And then it's like, yeah, I'll tell that to the people that don't get a chance to do that.
Don't get a chance to do it.
That you wait 12 months and by that time you've cooled off on those people and now you're like, oh, well, now I don't really want to. It's, you know, it's the same thing as anything else. The world fucking blows when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Then it pisses me off because how many times isn't it completely flipped where they're like, oh, well, we've got to have 9 multi-person matches because everybody deserves to be on Mania.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating. But I digress. The New Day is going to win.
Callum, you're going New Day as well?
Oh, yeah, I think New Day will win. I think, as Rob's kind of pointed out, I just think that WWE have not received anywhere near enough backlash for how badly they've handled the New Day since the heel turn.
Mm-hmm.
I think it goes under the radar. Like, again, I don't want to say like, oh, if AEW did this or any other promotion did this, there'd be uproar. But it does feel like people just, because it's just, they're a tag team and it's for the World Tag Team titles, and the tag team ever since last year when they were, not last year, the year before that, when they were main eventing WrestleMania, it's now back to status quo. The tag team divisions realistically don't matter. And
I'm going to make that same argument during the women's tag title match. We'll get back to that.
Yeah, and this match won't really matter for the grand scheme of things. They'll feel like giving the titles to the New Day will be like course correcting for them. And that will help, like, oh, see, we turned them heel, we made them tag champions, and that's like, see, that's how the stories progress. It's like, no, you're doing this because you completely lost all momentum with them turning in the first place. So, and yeah, you're doing this to make good, and it won't feel anywhere near as important when they win these titles now as if they would have done if you'd have like carried on the momentum of their heel turn. So, yeah, the only way I could see them not winning is if Big E got involved in some fashion, but I feel like that would be a bit, like, anticlimactic, but it's only if, like, Big E's going to be doing something, actually getting back in the ring long term, and they'd be starting off some kind of feud between them, because if you just have Big E go out for a one-off thing to, like, stop the New Day winning the tag titles against the War Raiders, it doesn't feel epic. But they may feel like, oh, it's another cool moment we can put as a YouTube short. So,
I'd rather.
That's always the mindset I'm taking now with like this content era of WWE. It's like, okay, but can we monetize it as a TikTok? If so, then we might do it.
You're right. That's the problem. Is you're absolutely right. They don't give a shit about anything, but they're gonna go, oh my god, it got so many clicks. They're gonna go, okay, yeah, but you completely like bastardized the story of one of your most popular tag teams ever. If Big E was going to get involved, I would honestly be okay with and completely forgive all of the last 4 months if he just came out, helped Kofi and Xavier, and they were like, yeah, we got you. Fuck you. The New Day forever. I'd be okay with it because it's one of the biggest just mistakes, and that's saying something because for a guy like Kofi, he's had a lot of start-stops and a lot of bumps in the road, and this is one of the worst. Because how do you do that to one of your most popular tag teams?
And with the heel turn, it was like, that worked. Like
that was the thing in wrestling.
People were talking about it, and they decided, I guess, maybe they thought that it would just carry itself and they didn't need to put any effort into it or something, or maybe they didn't have anything in mind of what they wanted to do. And they were like, shit, we don't have anything for this week. We'll figure it out next week. And then it became next week and next week and next week or something. But they really they waited until it cooled down to then try to reheat it again. And by reheating it, this is all they had in mind was just, they just get booked. And that's it. So it's as much of a low effort, microwave it for 10 seconds, but if you nuke something like that, it's not going to really be super hot again. It's really disappointing because these teams deserve better. And yeah, they're going to put the titles in New Day, and then they're going to act like they did something as opposed to like the bare minimum. But at least it's not as bad of a situation as they've got going on with Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair. This women's championship match was something that they clearly booked with like, hey, on paper, these two. And then they did not think whatsoever about the actual like ramifications behind like how to book this and like what to do and like the face and heel dynamics, because it started off, and this is one of the stupidest things that like, I don't know how they can still be this tone deaf. Charlotte's coming back and they decide, well, we want her to be a babyface. So how do we babyface her? We'll show that she's got this like yacht and she's acting like a bitch and talking about all the things that she always talks about when she's a heel. And
you don't think she's meant to be a babyface, do you?
Oh, she was definitely, she was 100% supposed to be a babyface.
No.
Yeah, because they were having her say more babyface things, like about how glad she has to be back and all the people that are supporting her and all this. Like, they were having her like bare minimum babyface that stuff while still acting like a complete bitch. And Tiffany, in the meantime, right at that time, they decide, well, if she's supposed to be like the heel for this whole thing or something, let's put it right at the time that she cashes in Money in the Bank and beats a heel Nia Jax. Well, yeah, she's going to get a more babyface reaction in that front. And then anybody against this type of Charlotte Flair is going to get a babyface reaction. So then they have to pivot, and they just do not know how to book Tiffany as a babyface or Charlotte kind of in any capacity anymore. She has phoned it in for so many years that a couple years ago, it was like, okay, Charlotte's the definitive best woman on the roster. And now it's like, I don't remember the last time that I gave a shit about Charlotte Flair. But she is awful. And like, I wish I could say, well, you know, the match will be good, which, you know, if you've listened to the podcast long enough, you know full well that I am not the type of person that says weeks and months worth of shitty build is totally fine as long as the match in the ring ends up doing that, because to me, I think that that's like such a cop out. And to this day, I'll defend the Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks feud was shit. The match was great, but the feud and everything leading up to it was garbage. This is not even going to be one of those things. I don't think Tiffany and Charlotte are going to have a great match. I think that they're going to be stumbling around, and Tiffany is going to be nervous and she's going to make mistakes. Charlotte is going to do the thing that she's done before, where she either sandbags somebody, or she's so in her head about the crowd reaction, and she's so in her head about like needing to act a certain way or whatever, and so just annoyed at everything. She seems like she doesn't want to be here, and that she cherishes the time away from the ring more than anything else. I think this is going to be a mess. And if Tiffany wins, it's going to kind of feel like, well, then why did you waste that Royal Rumble on Charlotte? You could have built somebody else up for this. And if Flair wins, which I do think is going to happen, I think they're going to make the mistake of just putting the belt on Flair again. Then everybody's going to go, all right, who's she drop it to? And then at that point, we can only hope that it's one of Charlotte's super quick title reigns. I am not looking forward to this at all. And I know that it's not just like the people that are super tapped into it that feel like that too, because I always mention I talk to guys at the building that I live that are pro wrestling fans. And of course, you know, 2 days ago or whatever it was, I'm like, you know, getting ready to go get some groceries, and it's like, oh, hey guys, like, what's up? And they're like, oh, like, let's talk about WrestleMania real quick and all. And the first two topics that were brought up, number one was, who do you think is going to win between Cody and Cena? Of course. Number two was that fucking Tiffany and Charlotte thing. And it was just like immediately, yeah, but that goddamn. So I know that it's the more casual audience that's thinking the same thing too. This is shit. And it could have been so much better if they would have planned things out ahead of time, or if things would have worked out better.
Yeah, I mean, this whole feud has been like absolutely atrocious from start to finish, to the point where probably weirdly the best segment they've had is one where Tiffany decides to just go off the rails and just start having a go at Charlotte from the cuff, rather than any of the stuff they've actually done, because it's meandered from, you know, boring, nothing happening segments where, you know, they're sitting with each other, doing a you know, camera to camera interview, or, you know, just Charlotte comes out and does a post-match attack on Tiffany, you know, just some really bottom of the barrel, just, you know, by the numbers stuff. And then going into, okay, this is just going to go completely off the rails, and that stuff is, you know, it's entertaining in the same way as like a car crash where, you know, no one's got hurt is entertaining. So, you know, that's the build, that's been the route they've taken. And as I say, Charlotte hasn't been good for a while. It's one of those things where she can pull it off for a big match. Like, her last great match was the match with Rhea Ripley for the title a couple of years ago, and that was a legitimately like great match, one of the best women's matches in WWE history type match. So she can do it when she's got the motivation and the desire to do it. And she lost that match as well, so it was not the case that she has to win. But I think this time around, because she's back, she won the Royal Rumble, there's a real kind of like interesting. Well, not interested. Like, she'll expect to win. She would have been promised probably to win. So that's what the result would end up being. But yeah, they've mishandled Tiffany because she was actually over as a babyface and the stuff with after winning the money in the winning the cash in, and then the stuff that she was doing with Nia Jax, and then she's now had to go into a more kind of how would you describe it? I guess a more vanilla babyface, whereas that she was getting over doing what she does. And so now they've had to kind of restrain her a little bit because they don't want her getting so much over than Charlotte. And yeah, I think that if the match starts to go wrong in certain places, or there's like a mistake here and there, which there likely will be, because as good as Tiffany is and her potential and the ceiling being super high with her, she's still fairly green. She's only been doing this for a few years still. Yeah. So she's likely going to make a mistake somewhere along the road. And then the way I've seen it described by other people, and I think it's an accurate description, is that when a lot of veterans, when they have a more inexperienced opponent, the opponent makes a mistake, they will work harder to, salvage the match from that situation. Whereas Charlotte will allow Tiffany to, drown in any mistake that she makes. And it won't matter if the match suffers as a result of it, but Charlotte will make sure to prove that, if there is something that goes wrong in the match, it's on her, it's not on me.
Yeah, to prove that, well, I didn't screw it up. Clearly, she's the one that did, and this is why I'm the queen, and that, kind of. Yeah.
And this is part of and it's kind of this potentially part of the reason why there is such a kind of a closed glass ceiling when it comes to the women's division. In that there's usually only the past long time, there's only been a handful of women that have consistently stayed in the main event scene. It's basically just been Charlotte, Becky until she left recently, Bianca, Rhea. That's basically, at the moment, that's your top echelon thing. You could say Bayley as well, but Bayley has kind of moved into the kind of mid-card veteran role recently. But, yeah, and so, yeah, I think the match itself is probably going to be poor. The build for it has been poor. I'm one of those people that thinks you can salvage a bad story with a good match, because that's just the way I look at things. But I don't see any real prospect of this match blowing anybody away based on what I've seen from Charlotte in the last few years post that Rhea Ripley match, and Tiffany, having good matches. But I don't think she's had. I disagree with myself there. I think that she has had a great match with Becky Lynch in that NXT thing, but I don't think since coming up to the main roster she's had a great match yet. And I don't think she'll be able to carry or influence Charlotte Flair into creating that great match. So we'll see. Maybe Charlotte decides to turn up and just decide to be, unlock something from her old self and decide, okay, I'm going to show up and I'm going to show the world why I'm considered one of the greatest women's wrestlers in this company's history. And so she's always got the potential of doing that, but that just doesn't feel like 2025 Charlotte Flair.
Who do you think's going to win, though, ultimately?
Oh, Charlotte will.
What about you, Rob?
No doubt in mind.
I will say that Charlotte Flair is absolutely winning, because it just feels like Caleb said, this is part of the return package. We're going to give you another world title. But I also think that they lucked into something here, because they fell ass backwards into one of the more anticipated moments and matches on the show, because it was just oh, that went off the rails. Maybe if they have an off the rails, brawl of a match, people will be super into it. So I think if they can play into the buzz they've generated, they have a chance. They have more of a chance than they did before that promo. That being said, I've been very outspoken, as you guys have, as I feel like Charlotte Flair hasn't been super motivated. My hope is that, knowing that you're back and that this can be the chance to really hammer home and solidify the legacy, she puts forth her best effort, and you take the buzz from the promo, and you get something special. Because otherwise, you're just getting another blasé Charlotte Flair match, which has kind of been the standard outside of a few exceptions since the pandemic, to me. But I've got faith that hopefully the real life issues that they seem to have made people believe in will carry them through this match, and then hopefully they can have a fun one.
Ludwig Kaiser should come out during the match.
Ludwig Kaiser should absolutely be in Tiffany's entrance, which should be completely full Barbie, full pink car, full everything. She should get a special entrance for this.
He could be Ken.
He should. Look, have you seen him? He looks like a Ken doll. Like, he should absolutely be Ken.
I hope he's not all Ken doll for her sake.
Yeah, you got a point there.
I am also going Charlotte Flair, and if they just want her to get to 16, or God forbid 17 or 18, to be like, oh, okay, well now we beat the John Cena thing or something.
What is she up to? 12? What is this?
14.
You're fucking for real?
Because they count her NXT ones to try to make it quicker.
No, they don't. Isn't it that if they did count the NXT, she would already be at like 15, 16?
No, yeah, she's full team without NXT.
Without the NXT, yeah.
Is she?
She's a 6-time Raw or WWE Women's Champion. She's a 7-time SmackDown Women's Champion. She's a 1-time Divas Champion.
Oh, I thought that was 14 with the NXT ones.
No. If they added those in, she'd be
16 with that now, yeah.
Well, then they should just say fuck it and then not have to do this anymore.
No, because they don't want to do that, because then that would actually mean having to, 1, care about NXT, and 2, not be able to say that John Cena broke Ric Flair's record.
Well, and also, if she won it, she'd be 17 times as well, so she would have broken Ric's record, which is probably what they want to do.
I don't care anymore about, like,
it doesn't mean anything to us.
But no, I mean, as far as like when
doing good stuff.
When Flair comes out and it's like, I'm the queen, I'm the whatever, and it's like, all right, you really have not changed your character up at all. Like, there's nothing that we've gotten from Flair in the past 5+ years, if not more, that was ever anything different that we got before. It's just a lazier version of that. She's progressively getting less and less interesting and not doing all that great in the ring either to make up for it. So I'm well past the point that, you know, if Flair decided that she wanted to retire, I'd be like, all right, we're not really going to miss anything. And this match can go a long way in convincing me whether or not that's true. If they put out a really good match and Charlotte ends up having some kind of like wake up call to not be so damn blasé about everything, then okay, maybe there's a chance. But if this is as textbook as you can get and it's as generic of Flair wins and then she's just like, you see, I told you I'm the queen of the division, then somebody comes out and goes, I'll fight you, and then they just do the same shit, I'm gonna tune out so fucking hard for the however long it'll take before they just put the belt on somebody else. So I'm hoping that, honestly, that Tiffany retains, just so I can avoid that, because I don't have a whole lot of faith in them, but I think that Flair's winning this belt. And I think that this should go probably either like second to last or third to last, depending on what they would want to put in between there. Maybe do like Flair, if she wins the title, and then go to like New Day or something, because that match will be slightly more fun. But in any fashion, whoever's going to follow that, unless they end up having a stellar match, I think that somebody following that's going to have to like wake the crowd up again or something. And at least the main event, even though it's not for anything, it's got 3 of the biggest names you can put in there. It's CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns in a triple threat match, with most of this revolving around Paul Heyman, which is kind of weird.
I disagree with you completely.
The stakes are Paul Heyman.
It's for the heart of Paul Heyman. He's the bell at the ball.
Punk is having his first WrestleMania main event, and he is going to have Paul Heyman by his side. Roman Reigns is really mad at Paul Heyman lately because he thinks that it's a betrayal for him to agree to be on Punk's side. Rollins is claiming that because he didn't stomp him, that he owes him a favor. Rollins has been doing a lot of best for business type talk, and how he needs to win because that means that the future of the company is all dependent upon that, as if there's any, like, it doesn't matter who wins this match. And Punk mostly just like wants to win the match, and Roman just wants to win for the sake of, you know, I'm Roman Reigns, I win everything. This could go in any direction, and I am kind of stuck in my prediction right now because a few weeks ago I was thinking, all right, Roman's not winning, but he's not losing. It's either Punk pins Rollins or Rollins pins Punk. I still think that it's not going to be Roman that wins, but I can't quite decide between Punk and Rollins because it's too obvious if they just go with, hey, the swerve is that he is with Rollins and not Punk or Reigns. And I don't see a point in Paul Heyman being associated with Seth Rollins either, so I don't think that that's going to be the thing going forward. It's also a little too obvious if it's just some kind of like, okay, well, Punk is going to pin Roman and Heyman kind of interrupts, and then he interrupts this and he interrupts that, and then he can't quite make a decision, and they do like the constant thing like that. I do think that that's going to happen though, but I lean more towards this being Heyman will probably either walk out and it'll be like, I'm tired of everybody fighting over me, or he will do something that will inadvertently cost somebody the match. Like he, say, brings like a chair into the mix and he's trying to hand it to Punk and Rollins gets it. And then Rollins uses that as like a stomp, and then it's like, see, you helped me out there, Paul, even if you didn't really plan on it, or like something like that. They have to have a match finish already in mind for this. I'm sure of that. And I don't know where they go going forward out of this, no matter what. So I'm kind of up in the air. I wish that this was for a championship. I wish that this was like, honestly, I wish that it was just CM Punk versus Seth Rollins and Roman was doing something else, and that they could have just gotten The Rock involved or whatever it might be. But
so you're saying you would have rathered Punk and Rollins just feud for another 4 months? Outside of what they did?
I would have rather them not book that match on January 6th.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You would just rather have had them continue to feud instead of just doing the match.
Oh, yeah. Like they would have on and off had their interactions, and they would have both been feuding with somebody else. Yeah. And then Roman, I mean, without The Rock, I don't know what they would have done, but I wouldn't have wanted them to drag out the Solo Sikoa thing and do the tribal combat thing here. That would have been way too long for that. But that's the whole idea about you don't book a WrestleMania around The Rock if he doesn't commit to things, you know?
More on him when we talk about night 2. I first of all, this has been my favorite build. Surprise, I love all three of these guys, so of course it was. But the problem I have with this is they've almost jumped the shark with the Heyman stuff. Because now it's like, do you really need the element of, and Rollins is in his ear too? Like, there's too much going on, and it's too much of like one of those matches where you're just watching Paul the whole time, while three of, the top stars of the last 10, 15 years battle it out, and you're just like, what's Heyman gonna do? Did he move his hand there? Like, is he getting ready to do whatever spot causes the finish? I do think that the winner here is very hard to pick. Because on the one hand, it should probably just be Punk. And then he goes on the post show and talks about, I did it. I won the main event of WrestleMania. It could be Roman, because you could start to say, all right, it's been a year. Can't complain anymore. We're going to start integrating him back into the title picture. Or you just blow the whole thing up and it's Seth Rollins. And then it's like, okay, Seth Rollins beats Punk and he beats Roman. And then what? And that's the problem with this match not being for anything. Because you're just left with the question of, okay, cool. He beat Roman and Punk, is he just going to feud with Jey Uso, which he now feels like such a greater star than? Or, like, what do you do with it? So, I don't know who's going to win. This is a toss-up, but I'm going to say Punk should win. Because the whole story here is, isn't it neat that Punk's finally headlining Mania?
Yeah, I mean that's part of the reason why I'm not super hot on this match. It's mainly just due to the fact that it's the whole kind of, or at least part of the build up to it has been focused on you're going to be the main event of WrestleMania, and like this whole inside baseball kind of terminology that yes, people that have been who've been wrestling fans for a long time know that part of the reason that Punk left is because he wanted the main event of WrestleMania, and so they're referencing to that. But in the same way that a lot of modern day WWE fans, whenever CM Punk makes some kind of veiled reference towards AEW, they just shrug because they have no idea what he's talking about. I'm sure a lot of them also have no idea that CM Punk left because he really wanted to be in the main event of WrestleMania. So it's like you've built
I'll go a step further. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, you've built that whole thing around I guess a piece of backstage politics. And to be fair, not a lot of what WWE are doing nowadays. There's a lot of like those sort of like veiled fall breaking comments in several feuds nowadays, but that's neither here nor there. AEW does it, everyone does it. It's like the people that run these shows are way too online. Put it that way. But
even though they'll tell you the internet doesn't mean anything.
Exactly, yeah. But they are. You can tell that Triple H has at least one, if not multiple, burner accounts where he just follows every single mention of something that's going on in WWE right now.
It'd be funny if he had a burner account for every type of letter, where he's triple M, triple L.
Yeah.
I guess he couldn't do triple A.
Yeah. The other thing that I'm just unsure about this match is just because so much of it is built around Paul Heyman and the power that he seemingly holds, because there seems to be a big reason why they'd want to have Paul Heyman on their side. And you can make the argument of like, well, he's led Roman Reigns to that record-breaking title win, but they never really like attributed a lot of that title reign to Paul Heyman. They always just said how great Roman is, and Roman is one of the greatest champions of all time. So does Paul Heyman have like pull behind the scenes? Does he have sort of like a level of power? Does he have influence that we haven't been told about, which makes him such a desirable commodity as a manager and as a someone that Punk wants to have by his side, that Rollins potentially wants to get favors from, and the Roman wants to keep around? And then there's also the issue about the fact that like who's the babyface, who's a heel, what is the dynamics? But how does that work in terms of like the dynamics of the match? Like, I'm sure it's fine in terms of the fact that they're all kind of like popular. They all have heelish and babyface tendencies, and the crowd will just cheer for who they want to. But it just makes it like a little bit odd in terms of structuring the match to just have, just three guys who are mostly babyface, but also have a little bit of a heelish tendency to them. And the whole thing you're waiting for in this match, in the same way of like an old school NWO main event, is you're waiting to see what Paul Heyman does, rather than watching the match and thinking, oh, what move is going to end it? You're more waiting. Okay, we know that a finish is not going to happen until Heyman gets involved somehow.
Right.
So you're kind of building a lot of it on that moment. And then, so we'll wait and see. As I say, the guys involved are good enough to have a great triple threat match, so the match itself shouldn't have too much issue as long as they don't lean too much into the melodrama stuff that they can do on occasion. But yeah, as I think that because of the Paul Heyman involvement, because it's so tightly tied into what Heyman does and whose side is Heyman on, it could potentially take away from the flow of the match because you're just waiting for that moment.
You know what is frustrating to me is the way they've chosen to build this story without a championship perfectly fits a Cody Cena non-title story, where this is for the soul of wrestling, and we're just fighting to fight. Cena and Cody can get away with that. These three guys, especially Punk and Roman, they need something to fight for. And fighting over Paul Heyman is just weird. It is. Like, it's fine, it works, it's working, but to do this in the main event of WrestleMania is just weird, because when you look back on it, you go, oh, why were they in the main event? Because Paul Heyman was friends with two of them? It's like, this wouldn't have happened in any other thing, except for the fact that they'd painted themselves into a corner of, well, we've got to get Punk in the main event. You could have just done, this could have been for any championship. Could have been for, the belt that Gunther has, could have been for, somebody could have beaten Cody along the way, and Cody could have fought Cena non-title. I know we'll get into whether or not that would have hurt that match, but it's just frustrating because, like, look, I think the match is going to be good. I think Punk's going to have Living Color play him to the ring. I think, Rollins is going to have some elaborate attire and entrance. Roman might not, because I think Roman's whole presentation is going to be, I am the attraction. I don't need the bells and whistles. But it's just weird, because in a different world where he's not implicated in a, horrible lawsuit, is the ending just, and Brock Lesnar comes out and says, he was always mine, Like, what are we doing here? Like, what is the actual story?
Curtis Axel comes back then.
That closes out WrestleMania.
All of this, again, I think a lot of this has to do with just The Rock fucked it all up. And
Probably.
I make excuses for certain things here and there, and everybody should have a little bit of leeway. But at the same time, I just kind of feel like, well, you didn't plan that out, and how many years have you trusted that The Rock will do something and then he bails at the last minute?
Hey, by the way,
shouldn't do it.
He has not appeared since Chamber at all.
Yeah.
Annoying.
It's ultimately, I'm saying CM Punk wins this match, but I am not particularly super solid with that prediction.
CM Punk pins Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins screams into the night that he's upset that Punk has won something.
I think Punk does win because of interference from Heyman deciding to side with him, permanently. I think the most interesting route is to have Rollins win, just because it's the least expected. And sometimes you just go with the least expected outcome, and you can still do stuff with Roman and Punk moving forward. But yeah, I think that Punk will probably win.
So that's night one.
Hold on. I got one more fan theory here. Rollins did help Cena win at the Elimination Chamber. Is there a possibility that he's aligned with The Rock and John Cena? That would be the most interesting outcome here. But I don't know.
I saw some people do theories by some of Rollins' attire choices recently, mirroring some of the stuff that The Rock wore in the past. Yeah, the Hollywood Rock stuff in the past. So, if they're that meta about it, then potentially that could be a route they decide to go with. But I think that, what I was thinking potentially more interesting would have been if they'd gone down a route where Rollins was part of a bit more of a stable or collection that was kind of anti-Shield, or was like a shield against the reformed Bloodline kind of thing. Whereas people like obviously, unfortunately, Kevin Owens is injured now, so that couldn't happen. But Kevin Owens and Drew McIntyre and people that were baby faces that got screwed over by the Bloodline, and now the Bloodline are just baby faces and they're supposed to accept it. That could have led somewhere a lot more interesting, where they become heels by the fact that they're justifiably dislike the Bloodline. They're just not willing to cheer them like the fans now are. But I think, but that would have been a more interesting route to take. Whereas now it's more of a case of just he's got history with Romans and he's got history of Punk, so he's in this match. So.
And then Roman's well, I don't have any issues with Punk at all until you brought up the Paul Heyman thing. And
exactly. Well, they worked together. They were teaming together in the
War Games.
In the War Games match, yeah. So
they've done a better job telling some of the story than I thought that they were going to. And then in other ways, I still just go back to, this would have been better if it was Punk versus Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship. This is not WrestleMania itself, but I figured let's toss it in here now. The Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal is happening on SmackDown. Again, WrestleMania SmackDown is not WrestleMania, no matter how much WWE is going to try to convince you otherwise. And we don't know anybody who is definitely going to be in the match. We don't know what their plans are for any kind of surprises or anything, but I had written down a list of everybody that I feasibly could see in this match. Normally, they don't include any kind of NXT talent, so I'm just assuming no NXT people will be in this. And we haven't seen a good number of people for a while. The Wyatt Six have been gone because Bo Dallas being injured. People like Apollo Crews and Bronson Reed and Ilya Dragunov and JD McDonough and all these people, like, they're injured. Omos has been gone for God knows how long, so I'm not even counting him.
I think he's winning. I'll just say that right now.
Omos?
Yeah.
Huh. I don't think he's even going to be in it. I still came up with a list of 31 people that are in some fashion on the main roster and not booked for WrestleMania. Very quickly, in alphabetical order. Akira Tozawa, Andrade, Angel Garza, Austin Theory, Braun Strowman, who might have been written out, we'll see. Brutus Creed, Carlito, Carmelo Hayes, Cruz del Toro, Dragon Lee, Elton Prince, Grayson Waller, Alberto Carrillo, Jimmy Uso, who also might have been written out. Joaquin Wilde, Johnny Gargano, Julius Creed, Karrion Kross, Kit Wilson, Ludwig Kaiser, Otis, Pete Dunne, Ray Phoenix, R-Truth, Santos Escobar, Shinsuke Nakamura, Solo Sikoa, who has not ever competed in the Andre, despite the fact that he is on his third WrestleMania of not competing. Tama Tonga, The Miz, Tommaso Ciampa, Tyler Bate. This does not include the possibility of Randy Orton, which I highly doubt that's what he's going to do. But he is technically not a part of the WrestleMania card, so I got to put him out there. And it also does not include the people that could potentially be putting themselves in here, like Miro and Aleister Black, and Jeff Cobb is now in the mix.
He's not in the mix for Friday. He's still wrestling on Saturday in New Japan.
Yeah, I don't think Jeff Cobb's going to be in here for this. I also don't think Miro and Aleister Black are going to be on here. Because if you think about it, not everybody's going to get, most people are not going to get entrances for this, even though SmackDown's 3 fucking hours long. They're going to end up having a good portion of them just in the ring. Like, LWO might come out and it's everybody, or, whatever it might be, but they're going to only focus on a few people to have an entrance. And if you take an Aleister Black or a Miro and you have them return and you give them an entrance, that spoils the whole match. Everybody knows they win. If you have them return without an entrance, it completely spoils their return. And this match ultimately doesn't really mean anything. So I think this is much more likely to revolve around Ray Phoenix winning than anybody else, with the possibility of Ludwig Kaiser. And then if anybody else wins, I'll be very surprised.
I think Kaiser could win because he's done a couple of promos about wanting to make some kind of an impact on WrestleMania weekend. But ultimately, because it doesn't matter, and it is what it is, Omos is healthy. Just fucking have him win the Andre. It doesn't matter. Just do it.
I mean, it's in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. I mean, people will argue that, like, last year's won by Bronson Reed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Bronson Reed went on to do like some cool stuff with Seth Rollins. Like, yeah, you do realize there was like a 5-6 month gap in between that stuff where he did nothing, and they just slotted him in there because they needed something for Rollins to do. It went from, okay, he wins Battle Royal to being pushed. He says wins Battle Royal, does nothing for like 2 or 3 months, and then gets pushed. So realistically, it would, like all of these Andre Giant Battle Royals since, well, for at least the last 5-6 years or so, it could realistically be won by anybody that they're just kind of interested in that. I mean, fucking hell, Mojo Rawley won a Andre Giant Battle Royal, so if he can win it, anybody can win it.
Madcap Moss.
Yeah,
Madcap Moss as well. Yeah, so if they could, as I say, it would make sense to go with someone if there is like, if Miro and Aleister Black make their debuts here, make choice to be one of those to win, or if you have you've got a Ray Phoenix that's just started and would be a cool choice to to win to give him a little bit of momentum straight off the gate, or they could decide, wouldn't it be fun if Tozawa won, and they go that route. Also, let's have Otis win because they can celebrate with Maxine and like have a fun moment there, and it's like, it's like. And it doesn't have to just be Alpha Academy related. No, I just named those two, but that's because they're kind of treated as like the little bit of the joke.
Could win, and then ask if he is now Andre the Giant. But
you could have someone. You could have like that be the moment where somebody gets called up from NXT and they decide they just enter the Battle Royal and they win it. And like I'm trying to think who would be a choice for that. Maybe a Dawn Spears or I don't know. Who's someone who's not doing anything that's like big enough that's probably should be out of NXT that's not doing anything at the Stand and Deliver.
Roxanne Perez.
Well, I don't think she's the Giant Battle Royal. That'd be crazy though. Like the smallest person in history to ever win the Andre the Giant Battle Royal.
Most people are booked for Stand and Deliver.
Okay, so there's not really anyone that's okay. So that's fine. That makes sense. But
even like Tony D'Angelo is booked for Stand and Deliver, so I don't think it would be anybody. But another name that I forgot to mention, if he's cleared, which I think he might be, and they might just have him on the back burner right now. This could be something for Sheamus. They could just be like, "Look, we don't have anything for you, Sheamus. You're a big enough name. You win this," and that's like the Bobby Lashley win that they gave,
That, but whatever, you're right. They did give it to Bobby Lashley. Sheamus could win it.
Yeah, that's if he's clear, but I don't know for sure.
I think they'll go Braun Strowman and they'll push it as like he's the first ever 2-time winner of the Andre.
I wouldn't be opposed to it. It's a shame that somebody like a Solo doesn't just win this instead. But yeah, that's it's a prediction for Friday night. Another thing that's still an unknown when it comes to this is Randy Orton. Now, I am working under the assumption that they didn't plan to have Kevin Owens have his injury. So they needed to figure something else out. And they might still not even 100% know exactly what they're doing. But they didn't follow up that RKO from Randy Orton to Nick Aldis in any kind of way that would have been, okay, Aldis is going to fight. So I'm disappointed in that because to me that would have been the most interesting scenario. But instead, I think that on Sunday, we're going to get some kind of a segment where Randy Orton is going to come out and he is going to say, look, I was scheduled for this card. It's WrestleMania. It's my 20th year, whatever, being in the company. I forget whatever he had said. I'm fucking doing something. And I'm putting out an open challenge. And then at that point, it could be anybody. I mean, realistically, it's not going to be certain people. Like, they're not going to have Randy Orton come out with an impromptu open challenge match and then have that be, okay, it's Tyler Bate or it's Carlito or, like nothing like that. Brutus Creed is not going to be the one person that answers the challenge. But if they do an open challenge, it could be a Rey Fenix. It could be a Jeff Cobb if he's able to turn things around real fast and join the company and sign up. But I highly doubt that that's going to be the case. It could be the return of Miro. It could be the return of Aleister Black, which that's what I'm leaning more towards than anything else. I think that Black will end up showing up and doing that. Or it could be like, well, we have somebody in mind from NXT that we want to do that because now Stand and Deliver will be done. So maybe that's where like a Trick Williams pops up or something. I hope it's not Solo Sikoa because it's the only person that they've had interact with Randy since then. I'll be really disappointed if it's like Randy Orton comes out at WrestleMania. It's like, oh, an impromptu match and Solo comes out. I'll be like, God damn it. What a fucking waste. Do the RKO and pin him and that'll be it.
Jesus Christ. Poor Solo. If it is Solo, I hope they announce it on Friday. I'm leaning towards Aldis is a possibility because he didn't mention, if I don't get a match, I apologize to Mickie James for what I will do to you. So he can still have a match with Nick Aldis. But if not Nick Aldis,
they could do a thing where it's like Randy goes out, says, I want a match. I'm putting out an open challenge. And then Aldis comes out and says, Randy, we talked about this. You can't do that. You can't just book a match for WrestleMania for yourself. And then he goes, okay, well,
but I can.
Yeah, this is, or like, fine, then we're going to have to do this, you and I, because you're the person in the ring, and then maybe that starts a match or something. That would be my favorite scenario, is if it's Nick Aldis.
Here's the thing. You can't convince me otherwise. Randy's fighting for the WWE Championship next month at Backlash. So, you gotta do something with this man. One, because it's WrestleMania and people love themselves some RKO. Two, because he's gonna be in the main event program going into Backlash. So, Randy needs to be on this show. I'll guess Aldis, because it's fun.
I think that Aldis makes the most sense in that it would be a nice moment, and they could have a match where Orton gets the win, and they just show a bit of respect to each other, like just build a little bit of animosity. You've already done the RKO on Aldis. Maybe have Aldis like blindside Orton and says like, "Listen, I'll get you a match sorted for WrestleMania," and then as Orton turns his back, Aldis just hits him from behind and says, "Oh, I found your opponent, it's me," and then you have the match at WrestleMania on night 2. But yeah, but there's also just the equal possibility of like they have the match with Solo Sikoa, and if they do have a match with Solo Sikoa, then I could go with a situation where like the match is over in about like 30 seconds. Again, that's not just like an anti-Solo thing. I think that's just the way they've presented him recently is like he's someone who needs a reset. And they'll build that into the story of, okay, he suffers like an embarrassing loss here against Randy Orton, and so this is the opportunity to give him a character reset off the back of that. So I think, but Aldis is the most likely candidate in my mind. If they do decide to have Randy Orton match, I think there's still a possibility where there's no Randy Orton match on WrestleMania.
I can't see that world. I'm sorry.
There's a possibility that there's not a match, but that there's just a segment as well. That they're like, well, we don't want to have, say, like a Miro return and then lose, or we don't want to have somebody beat Orton, so let's just have a fight where that doesn't have to have like a conclusion, you know? And then I think that'll be a really bad cop out.
In town, by the way, like there's so many. Fucking, you have a working relationship with TNA. Let him beat Joe Hendry. Like, let him do something. He's Randy Orton. I'm not like it's not. We're not talking about like Bobby Lashley a couple years ago. Yeah, he's former champion and I'm big guy. This is Randy Orton. A lot of people are coming for just an RKO. There's at least a good, couple thousand people who probably just want to see an RKO. He's that popular. He's got to do something here. By the way, Sami Zayn's in town for that stupid Tony Hinchcliffe MAGA comedy hour. Fucking let him fight Randy.
That could be fun. Sami Zayn pops out and has the match. I'd be down for that.
Somebody have the match with Randy Orton.
It's kind of up in the air. They might announce something on Friday, but at that point, we'll have already done the hot tags and stuff, so it'll be what it is, But let's move on to the matches we know for sure are happening on Sunday, and I am kind of lost about what opens up this card. So quick rundown before we bounce around. We know the main event is Cody Rhodes against John Cena for the undisputed WWE Championship, and then the first match of the night could be any of these combos: AJ Styles versus Logan Paul, Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre in a Sin City street fight, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez against Bayley and Lyra Valkyria for the women's tag titles. That is certainly not going to go on first. Braun Breaker versus Dominic Mysterio versus Penta versus Finn Balor for the Intercontinental title in a fatal 4-way. And the triple threat match for the women's world championship between Io, Sky, Bianca Belair, and Rhea Ripley. I think that they're either going to start with the fatal 4-way for the Intercontinental title, or they're going to start with the women's triple threat.
I'm good with either one. Either one would be a hell of an opener.
Two of the better matches I think that'll happen on this show. Just for the sake of starting somewhere, let's start with the women's match. Io going in as champion and the person who this entire feud has revolved around, both the others just pushing her in the face over and over and over again. They had one note and they were like, just rinse and repeat for the next couple weeks. This should have been so much better. And I don't think that they had much of a plan, and I think that they're working with bare bones stuff here for people that are way more qualified to have a better feud. I don't think EO's involvement has helped at all, and I don't think that that's necessarily going to make the match better, even though EO is great. But I think that just changes the dynamic of the match up, and we're in another scenario with like triple threat match for the men in the main event of WrestleMania Saturday. None of these are heels, and they're all acting like bitches. So they're all acting like they're more of like villainous characters than they should be right now. So it'll be. Disagree. You don't think that Bianca's
Io Sky is a pure babyface right now? The other two are acting like catty bitches. Io Sky is a pure babyface.
And if anybody has to play full blown heel here, it kind of feels to me like that would lean more towards Bianca.
Mm-hmm.
And Rhea is kind of in that tweener capacity, but. For anybody that's wondering, does that mean that they turned? Do not jump down the heel and face turn list about like Rhea's tweener now, whatever. I don't think that they've booked themselves out of a corner here. I think they've booked themselves into a corner where if Io loses, she looks weak because she only won the title as like this last minute thing, and then she just keeps constantly being pushed aside. If Bianca wins, then I don't know where they necessarily go from there. And if Rhea wins, then the whole thing will be, well, then this just comes back around to the first thing, and where do you go from there as well? I think if any of them take a pin, it's going to look a little bit weird for them. Like Rhea has been looking very stupid lately, to the point that they even had her do the whole backstage thing where she's like basically like hitting herself in the head and being like, I'm so stupid. I don't know why they love humiliating her on the road to WrestleMania. And then you got Bianca, who, if she loses, then it's like, well, I lost the WrestleMania match with the Royal Rumble. I won the Elimination Chamber in this weird thing with Jade and Naomi. And then I got in here, and then I got superseded by an extra person being added into the match. And then now I just lost. It all feels like it's a mess. And I wish that they would have done two completely different things for the two women's world titles and set up something else better. But I have all the confidence in the world that these three are three of the best that they've ever had. So the match itself is one of like, it's easily going to be better than Tiffany and Charlotte. And I hope that they just have like a plan for all three of them going forward.
While I agree with
currently leaning towards Io retains.
While I agree with you that it's a total mess, it's also been my second favorite build on this road to WrestleMania. Because this is just the kind of story I like in wrestling, where it's, all right, they're fighting each other and they just want to be world champion. I think that Io winning from Rhea was a bump that they decided to add, maybe when they figured out that they weren't going to do anything with the women's IC title, and maybe that's where they thought Io would go. Don't know, but I've enjoyed the build. I've enjoyed Bianca embracing more of a heel persona. I think Ripley works best when she just doesn't care about anybody and is beating everybody up. And I kind of like Io as the frantic, pure babyface. They made a point of saying that Bianca hasn't been pinned going into WrestleMania. Like, she's never lost at WrestleMania. She's never been pinned. I think they keep that by having Io beat Rhea. I think Rhea's taken the fall. I'd rather Bianca win, but I can see Io winning. I think I'm going to go... My overall prediction is Bianca wins because she's got more of a story with Jade, Naomi, and all these other women. But I think Rhea's definitely eating the pin no matter who wins.
Well, unless Rhea wins, obviously. That'd be funny if she pinned herself in the title. But
more
I think that's
figure that out.
Wow, yeah. Talk about working the numbers game of the, you don't have to be pinned to lose the title.
Yes. I think that the build for this has been, again, from what I've seen, has been, a little bit messy, but I think it's actually quite logical and makes quite a bit of sense, really, because the whole story is that Bianca wins the Chamber, and Rhea, just as the champion at the time, immediately assumes she's facing her, not like kind of overlooking the Io Sky factor and the match that she was going to have against her. And then the whole story for Rhea has been she's been pissed that Bianca either got involved or caused an element of distraction in her title defense, and so she's just been gunning both to get her title back, but mainly just gunning towards Rhea, and Bianca's pissed off about that, and so she's targeting Rhea as well. And Io, even though she's the champion, feels like the third wheel in this story. But I think that's kind of by design, in that like those two, the bigger powerhouses, thought that they were going to have the match at WrestleMania, and this little wrinkle was kind of found its way into the works, and Rhea has just been desperately trying to get herself back into the match, even though she has no real right to be in the match, beyond the fact that, like, if you had like the automatic rematch clause. But then again, she's had her rematch and she didn't win the title.
Yeah, but that's solely because of the referee being Bianca.
Yeah, well, that in which case, like, Adam Pearce should probably lose his job, because why did you make Bianca Belair the referee in the title match? But you know, that's neither here nor there. I think the situation probably ends up in, like, the match itself should be a lot of fun because of the players involved in it, and I think that the whole story they'll tell early on is that it will probably just be a Bianca and Rhea match with Io trying to get involved, and they'll play off the segments that they've done so on Raw, where they'll just be pushing her out of the way or just trying to throw her out of the ring constantly, and then Io hits, like, you know, a springboard drop kick, takes them both out, and then we get the actual three-way match. But yeah, I don't think that this has been a poorly told story by any stretch of the imagination. I think they've actually done what they would have, what they could have what expected to do. And I think, you know, would I have probably preferred a singles match? Potentially. I think it's the singles matches in general are usually better than triple threat matches. But if it's a good triple threat match told correctly and the story's done right, then I don't think this has been bad. I think the one thing that I would say that's been a negative for this story, unless this is their long-term aim, is that, like, the crowd has turned on Bianca something fierce, and it's not been an intentional. Unless their long-term goal is that she does something heelish and wins the title and she's a heel moving forward, then in which case it's all worked out really well. But if their intention was just like, it's just Bianca and she's just in this match and the crowd is now like fully against her, like even more so than Rhea, when realistically, as the way the story's progressed, Rhea should be the one that's the heel, because she's the one that's like inserted herself into what should be a Bianca Belair versus Io Sky title match, and she's just trying to constantly get involved and interrupt and showing a bit of sour grapes in that regard. But no, the crowd has decided that Bianca's the bad guy, and so they probably should lean into that. And even if the plan wasn't to turn her heel off the back of that reaction. But yeah, and in which case I think that Bianca will win the title, because I think they just give Io a run. Io is a more sympathetic babyface than Rhea Ripley is, and it means that it would mean more if you're turning Bianca heel that she does it by screwing Io out of the championship rather than Rhea.
I think there's definitely more of a chance that Bianca wins the title than Rhea. Rhea is like almost guaranteed to walk out with the belt, and
I think Rhea's going to SmackDown. I think it's time to shake it up a little bit for Rhea and have her go to the other brand and, you know, feud with someone else.
The draft stuff, that's totally all, like, I have no idea what they have planned there. I don't think that they have any of that worked out, except for maybe like 2 or 3 little things here and there about, like, they gotta fucking put Roxanne on the main roster.
That'd be hilarious. Like they move Rhea into SmackDown to have some fresh feuds, and there's like, and also drafted to SmackDown, Liv Morgan,
right?
And then you just go back to that route again. But yeah, I could definitely see a scenario where she switches brands. But then again, like, Bianca's going to have to kind of switch brands because she is technically still a SmackDown superstar fighting for the Raw title.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then if Bianca switches to Raw, then the Street Profits do, because they keep the married couples together, which then if they are the tag team champions on SmackDown, then do they drop the belts to the Motor City Machine Guns? Do they drop the belts to somebody else in the meantime? Do they carry them over and we switch the world titles? And, like, you know, there's confusing things when it comes to that too. Which that also could happen very well. Because think about it this way, the world titles do not have to be on Raw. The world titles can be on SmackDown. They don't have the SmackDown and Raw names anymore for any of these things. So John Cena, again, if he wins the undisputed WWE Championship, he's probably going to be more so on Raw. And that would switch Jey Uso over. And, we could get a lot of things like that going forward. So, but one of the things we just talked about, though, real quick, I'm going to say I forgot about the whole Bianca being undefeated at Mania. So I'm switching mine up. I'm going to go Bianca wins.
Yeah, I'll say Bianca as well.
Yep, Bianca.
So then this is something I completely did not have this opinion about up until last night. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez against Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. Because, the Intercontinental Champion in the women's division is on the card, but she's not defending her title, nor is the Women's United States Champion, because what the hell. But instead, they're thrown together at the last minute to be a tag team to fight Liv and Raquel, because you can't do the Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross thing. You can't just do something else better. They should have thought of something better, but they didn't. And, they made their bed, so they have to sleep in it. I was, up until last night, just, okay, Liv and Raquel retain. But they introduced this thing at Stand and Deliver where there will be a fatal 4-way tag team match between Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley, Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson, the Meta Girls, Fatal Influence, which we're assuming it's Fallon Henley and JC Jane, and then Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez. They're back to being a team. Whether they're on the same page or not, it doesn't really matter. They're a team again. The winners of that match on the pre-show of Stand and Deliver will then have a match against the winners of this match from WrestleMania on Tuesday's episode of NXT for the tag team titles. Meaning we could get any combination of Liv and Raquel against those four or Bayley and Lyra against those four. I am not confident at all in these two matches now. Because this could be, you put the belts on Bayley and Lyra and they drop them immediately to Cora and Roxanne. Or it could be Liv and Raquel retain. And it's just a stupid matter of, we want to get more main roster people on NXT, so they show up and they fight the Meta Girls. Or they beat Gigi and Tatum. I don't think Fallon Henley and JC Jane are going to win this match, and then they're going to go on to do anything with either of these two teams. It's a possibility, but I don't think so. I really hope that if the plan is to put the belts on Bayley and Lyra, that it is to just immediately drop it to Roxanne and Cora. But I am still kind of leaning towards just it's Liv and Raquel retaining, and that they end up having a match with the Meta Girls instead. And then they retain over the Meta Girls.
I'll be quick because I've been long, but I don't like this match. I think Liv should be in a singles match, preferably for the IC title. I think Lyra should be defending the IC title. I think even Bayley could be fighting for the IC title. I think these tag titles should be used to get other women on the card. You have tag teams that could be on this show. Whatever. I think it's Bayley and Lyra, and I think they're losing to Roxanne and Cora, and that's how you finally get them called up. Please, God, call them up.
So I think there's a good chance that the title just stay in place, and this is more they're utilising the tag team title match to further a potential feud between Lyra and Bayley over the Intercontinental Championship. And that this is just a means of doing that. They win the tag team gauntlet, and whether it's a case of realistically, the long-term aim is to have another match between Bayley and Lyra. And whether that is they win the titles here, they hold it for a little while, then they lose it, and then that involves Bayley returning on Lyra. Because they even teased a little thing in their title match where Bayley refused a handshake straight away and pushed her aside, and so showing not specifically overly heelish tendencies, but the idea of, if she keeps losing or she gets frustrated or she doesn't feel like she's getting the win that she should have, considering her veteran status and her long reigns as WWE Women's Champion, that she just gets frustrated with the new upstart, and it's a means of using a veteran to build Lyra up in the long term. So whether they win the titles now and then they drop them, whether that is to Cora or Roxanne or somewhere down the line in a couple of months' time, after they seemingly form like a good unit together, or whether they just lose here and it's because and Bayley gets frustrated, attacks Lyra, turns heel, and then that's your feud for the Intercontinental Championship for the next pay-per-view sorted. I think, that's the different route you can take. So I think that they're going to go with Liv and Raquel retaining and just, fast forward that route to the next Intercontinental title women's match. So yeah, that's what my prediction would be.
Let's switch over to AJ Styles versus Logan Paul. It's not for anything, and it could go either way technically, but I think that Styles is in a position where he's here to have a good match with Logan Paul and lose.
Boo. Boo, I begrudgingly agree. Boo.
Yeah, I mean, is that about right? Yeah, I think that's probably that's probably the long and short of it. This is Logan Paul's annual WrestleMania showcase match where he puts in has some fun, does some entertaining stuff, and then a veteran helps him carrying through to make it an even better match. And then, well, to be fair, Logan Paul's lost plenty of time. It's not like it's a foregone conclusion that AJ would lose, but I just don't see there's not really a benefit. It's not like Styles is on a big upward trajectory right now. It's not like he's going for the World Championship anytime soon. So I think that, they'll have Logan win. I guess the question is there going to be any sort of involvement from Karrion Kross? I guess the second big question off the back of that is, does anyone care if there's any big involvement from Karrion Kross?
I like him. I wish he was better utilized. I
wish he was better.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. He's got
take off the word utilize, and I agree.
He's got a lot of good qualities to him, but no, I don't think he's showing up here. I think
take out the word good, and I agree with you. He's got qualities to him. I just think that I'd say the match itself should be good. It could be the sleeper, one of the better matches on the entire weekend, because that's just how Logan Paul kind of operates, and we know how good Styles is when he's on top form. So yeah, I'd say, obviously, I hate this match because Logan Paul's involved and he's a dick, and I'd rather he just wasn't given the platform that he is given. But can't deny that he's a really good athlete and has great matches, so I'm sure they'll have a great match here.
Yeah, it's a real shame that you can't take his skills and apply it to people that are struggling. Like, he's better on the mic than some people, and be like, all right, you're great in the ring, you suck on the mic, here's Logan Paul's mic skills. Oh, he's better in the ring than certain people. Oh, you're great on the mic, but you suck in the ring. Here's Logan Paul's ring skills.
If Karrion Kross could wrestle like Logan Paul, then he is world champion. Like he's like a permanent world champion, because he's a good promo and he's got a great look to him, but he just can't wrestle like him. So that's always, and again, there's different strokes for different folks. Some people would take the character and promo ability over, and the look over wrestling ability, but it doesn't fly with me, brother.
So we're all going Logan Paul. That's a pretty easy one. Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre in a Sin City street fight could go either way. I'm leaning towards Priest at the moment, just because he is a babyface, and overall WrestleMania does, statistically lean a little bit more towards babyfaces. But it could just be like, all right, Drew McIntyre wins. Like, it's not for anything. There doesn't seem like this is going to necessarily lead to any kind of the winner is going to fight for the championship in any capacity or something. Now, there is a chance that if they do plan on switching Jey Uso over to SmackDown, and that the World Heavyweight Championship is over there, Drew could win this and then be the first person that Jey Uso feuds with. I could see that being the case.
I would agree. That's exactly where I see it going. Drew wins, and he's inevitably the first challenger for Jey Uso.
Yeah, I think that I think Drew's probably more likely to win. I think that he's got more. Can he feud with Jey Uso? I guess you'd have to draft him, wouldn't he? Because he's SmackDown.
You would draft. I'm assuming you draft Jey to SmackDown.
Right.
Oh yeah, because he's world champ. Well, Cody's technically still SmackDown if he's WWE champion. Again, we'll talk about that one later on and what that means, because that could go in any kind of direction. But yeah, I think that Drew's probably the better choice for title challengers and just a long-term guy that's more established in the main event scene, or someone that you can firmly establish as a title challenger long-term. I mean, they've done a really good job with, a really good job. Yeah, I'll go as far as say really good job with Damian Priest this year to establish him as a upper mid-card, semi-main event guy. So I think that, there's no real harm in him losing here. They can always build him back up in the future. I'm sure he'll get future opportunities as well. I think McIntyre's also slightly the younger of the two of them as well, so there's more trajectory with him as being a big part of the company. He's only just signed a new contract as well, so, I think that there is more reason to give give Drew the win here. And also it helps, I guess, come a bit full circle in that how Damian took the title from Drew at last year's WrestleMania. To have Drew get the victory here and get a bit of comeuppance is probably a better way of going.
Very true. Drew McIntyre. Yeah, that's enough to convince me that it probably is going to be Drew McIntyre. And I think this is going to be one of the more fun matches too. So this could be like, I don't know, say third match on the card or something like that, depending on how they balance it all out. It all depends. I think that the women's tag title match is going to be one of those buffer segment ones that realistically people are not going to be as much into that as some of the other ones. So they got to try to sort out the card a little bit better in that way. And then the Randy Orton thing, who knows what's happening there. But there's also the Fatal 4-Way for the Intercontinental title. Bron Breakker, Finn Balor, Penta, and Dominic Mysterio. Braun's losing that title. And I don't think he's losing it to Finn Balor. Now, my preference would be that Dom wins. And that he does so in a means that he either pins Finn Balor or he does something like maybe Balor hits the coup de grace on Penta and then Dom pushes Balor out of the ring and pins Penta or something like that. But I want Dom walking out with the Intercontinental title. And I'd be cool with Penta winning. Penta's cool and he's getting over really well and that seems to be succeeding for him and all. Braun is at a point where he doesn't need to hold that championship anymore. And if they give it to Finn, I think it's going to kind of be a waste. So I'm rooting for Dom, and I think that Dom is going to win. I wouldn't be super shocked if it's Penta, though.
I think Dom is winning. I think he deserves it. I think he'll be a fun champion. He's become one of my favorite characters in all of WWE. I say that word specifically because I don't love the ring work, but he's fun to watch. So he kind of gets around it. It's not like a situation like a Karrion Kross or something where it's just like, man, I wish these matches were better. It's like, oh, you're so much fun to watch because the people connect with you. And I think Dom will be a fun short-term IC champion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the fact that Dominic could win this because I just don't think that, again, his character work is really strong and he's a big heel character. I just kind of see it as like, that's a bit honky tonk man winning the title for me. And honky tonk man held the title for a long time as well. It's a case of, it's a more comedy character holding your second biggest male championship on the brand. And that's okay every now and again, as long as it's not like a super long or over the top reign where you're supposed to like believe that he's winning legitimately a lot of the time, or he's he's actually beating more threatening guys or guys that have a better, I guess, aura or reputation around him. But it can work, again, it has to be short term and it has to then lead to like a top babyface beating him and the crowd getting super excited about it. You do the things where he just like cheats to win, but you can only get away with that for like a month or two before people get bored of it and just say like, okay, let's move on from this now. So I think it's probably too soon for Penta to win the title. It would be a good, like, I guess a good hallmark for him, or a good sign that they decide to give the title to him after a few months of being in the company. That's a real tick in his box and says, like, okay, he's gotten over with the crowd. You know, it's an opportunity for the WrestleMania crowd to chant Tony fumbled, which seems to be the big thing nowadays. Tony, you're getting strays all the time at this point.
Like, yeah, you know, it's 2025.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that so there's the possibility they'll go that route. I don't think it's absolutely out of the question they have Balor win, just because they could have him win, maybe even cost Dominic when Dom has the match won, and I mean, I think there's a good scenario where either of them win, where it's a case of one of them has the match won, and then the other one throws the other guy out of the ring, and then that causes the fracture in the Judgment Day, which finally ends that faction that probably should have ended like a year and a half ago anyway. But I think the one thing that we can all be in agreement on is that Bron Breakker's not retaining. But,
definitely not.
Yeah, and I think that it's time to elevate Bron to the world title scene, because I think that just adds a bit more excitement to it, because again, we can sometimes fall into the trap of just the same people being in the same cycle over and over again. Bron is actually a exciting prospect to move up into the title scene. And I could definitely see him not being... I don't think he'll beat Jay for the title, because I think they want to position him as a babyface, but I could see him beating the guy that beats Jay for the title, if you get what I mean.
I could see that, yeah.
Or he could beat Gunther, and they decide to not give Jay the title in the first place. But
could be that, yeah. Braun and Gunther was teased, so...
And Braun is was the last guy to... Well, before Sami Zayn, he was the last guy to beat Braun as well. But beat Gunther as well in NXT. So
that's right, yeah.
They could play into that story as well.
So that all leads to the main event. Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. John Cena's winning this championship. And I am fully convinced that if you end this in any way other than John Cena posing with the championship, you've made a mistake. It's just the more interesting scenario by far. Like, Cody retaining and telling the story about him being like he overcame the odds and all that stuff. That was last year. This year, Cena is in a scenario where he's going to retire in December, and winning the 17th world title is way more important. And telling this heel Cena champion story supersedes anything that Cody can do. I think it's time to have Cody drop the belt. And it's like, okay, you lose to John Cena, of all people, at WrestleMania after a heel turn for him to win the 17th world title. I don't want to hear anybody go, oh, now they're burying Cody. That's ridiculous when they do that stuff. Cody can take that loss. He can take a month off or whatever it is that they decide to do, which I think at this point he's deserved in taking a little bit of time off. And they can have a rematch at SummerSlam where they could do whatever they want to do for the rest of the year with like John Cena's stuff. I do think Cena's going to turn babyface at some point, and he won't be a heel at the end of the year. But you've got a really easy layup for Backlash. Randy Orton is a guy that's been associated with Cody Rhodes for a long, long time. He's on the poster. It's in St. Louis. He's got the history of John Cena. So it all lines up. Cody loses here, whether it's John Cena cheats or The Rock gets involved, or maybe it's just Cena wins straight up. I don't know. I would assume there's some kind of cheating. And then you got Cena and Orton at Backlash.
Yeah, I think that the sensible route is to have Cena win, because, the 17th World Championship, it's a big deal. And they've done well with the heel turn so far, and it gives them more room to maneuver than having just Cody beat him and just moving on from that point, because what do you really do with Cena at that stage? I think that they've kind of positioned themselves in a corner with the Cena heel turn that he has to win in order to cement it, because otherwise But it is quite interesting as well because realistically, he's got to end his career as a babyface. So they've kind of got this year left where Cena's going to be heel, but he's got to turn babyface by the end of it. So that would realistically come with him dropping the title to a babyface and showing the babyface respect and just leaving with a bit more dignity and showing a bit more respect towards the fans. And I think you could probably do that by having Cody win the title back off of him and just trying to get him to remember the real John Cena, and then they have a bit more of a respectful match when Cody wins the title back. But in order for that to happen, he has to lose it first, and so WrestleMania is the right place to do it. I guess The Rock will get involved, and who knows, Kendrick Lamar might get involved as well, come out and do that stuff. But yeah, I say I'm interested to see how the match goes because, again, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things because the crowd will enjoy it either way and they'll treat it as a big spectacle because the two people involved is the biggest star of the current era outside of Roman against the biggest star of like the modern era in general. So they'll treat it like a big occasion. We know that Cena's not quite at the level he once was, and quite frankly, that level was never really that high in the first place. But Cody knows how to do the more classic, like smoke and mirrors type of match. So much so he put in his entrance theme at one point. But yeah, I would prefer it if this had been no DQ. So I think you could have played about with it a little bit more, but they could do a situation where The Rock on the night before the show decides to just make it no DQ, and so you can lean a little bit more into their interference, or is The Rock pulling the strings for this match? So, but yeah, I think that Cena will win. You get that moment of him holding the title and him kind of feeling a little bit like he sold out, but he got his rewards for it. And so, yeah, I guess it's then just what does the future kind of hold for Cena as champion, because he probably won't be around that much. I mean, he hasn't been around a lot for the build to this feud in the first place. So we're probably going to have to enter an era of an absentee champion for the first time in a little while again. So that'll be interesting to see how they handle that. But yeah, you have more opportunity with guys like Randy Orton fighting him for the title. You could do like a babyface Braun Breaker. You've got like a Damian Priest, people on those lines that you could give the one-off matches to. It's a shame that we don't have Kevin Owens because will be around for this final one because there's such a close correlation between Cena and Owens' careers. Like Cena kind of brought Owens into the main roster with their match, so it would have been cool to see them have one final match as well. But yeah, maybe I'm getting a bit too ahead of myself. We need to have this match first. So yeah, I think that Cena wins the title.
If Cena doesn't win, they fumbled. Period.
If Cena doesn't win, we riot.
If Cena
hang on, I've got the Triple H's booking. Oh, they're going to have Cody win. So that's fine. Fumbling is his speciality.
They have fumbled a little bit more on this road to WrestleMania, but I can't see a world right now where John Cena doesn't win. This story doesn't work. Well, let's be clear. Let's start at the top. This story wasn't supposed to happen. So the story, it's being kind of pieced together in real time, and that's why John Cena doesn't have any new merch. That's why all of his merch is super babyface. Come get your market specific last time is now shirt. That's why he's not changing his theme. He did a great explanation of it. I thought that was fun. The whole Willy Wonka, you deserve nothing, you get nothing. But he has to win here. And then he has to be on the Raw after Mania and really hammer home, I'm the man and I'm taking this title home with me when I'm done in December, and you can create whatever fake championship you want because this is mine. And then you've got your story through December. I do think Randy is the first guy, but again, getting ahead of ourselves, we got to get to the match, which I think will be really good. I think this will be the first time John Cena's playing heel in a long time. And I think that'll play into the finish. I see it being a low blow into an AA or an STFU, where Cody just sort of passes out because, like, somebody hit him. He doesn't actually give up, but they can say, you're a quitter, Cody, whatever. And Cody has to lose. He has to fall on his sword for this one, and then Cena's celebrating with Rock and maybe Travis Scott. Maybe Cody beats the shit out of Travis Scott. Maybe that's what we get in this match. I don't know. This one's exciting because you never saw it happening like this. You thought it would be standard John Cena versus standard Cody Rhodes, and this is different, and that makes it fun. The part that bothers me is The Rock has to be involved here, and I hate that The Rock gets to do nothing and then show up and then make it all about himself.
Yeah, that sucks.
Hey, that's the tax that you get for, partly be a reason why WWE is in the position it is nowadays. It's because The Rock was so over at that in their highest period in history. But, and also by being the biggest movie star in the world and probably the most recognizable man in the world in many ways as well. Like, I kind of like, realistically, I know there are some people that will either disagree with this or even like be angry about this. The Rock makes WrestleMania fun.
100%.
Well, imagine what the build to this show would be like. And same with like last year and arguably the year before that. Until The Rock gets involved, it's all pretty boring. And then The Rock does something and he just messes everything up. But it makes it more interesting.
I 100% agree with you. Wholeheartedly, yes. But it's still frustrating when it's like...
Oh yeah, it messes up all the plans.
Show up at all. Last year, he was all over the road to WrestleMania.
Oh yeah,
Fool me twice, shame on me, though. What they should do for WrestleMania 42 is they should tell The Rock what their plans are and then perpetually book the backup plan, because inevitably he's going to go, that's great. It's not going to work for me, though. I can't. And then they'll go, oh, okay, so we already had that all set up. That's what they should do. It's kind of like when you know somebody that doesn't show up on time, you invite them an hour early, and then they show up at the actual time,
I know, I live for the day that The Rock comes in a day before a pay-per-view and says, this doesn't work for me, and just see how everything just falls apart. But,
and to be clear, all the reports suggest that's basically how we got here.
Yeah, well, the whole idea was the reports were that Rock suggested, or somebody suggested that Cody turns heel, Cody refused, and so they decided to go with the Cena angle instead. And so, like, that's how it all falls into place. It's like, what does The Rock feel like doing? And then if he decides, I don't really care about that stuff, then it's, okay, now Triple H takes over. But until The Rock kind of either gives the sign-off or says, I don't really care too much about that, then you move in the direction that The Rock wants. And I think that, as I say, this is better for it because it makes it a bit more interesting than it was. Because otherwise you would have had, babyface Cena against babyface Rhodes, which would have been, a nice little respectful match, but it would all be built around the 17-time win. Whereas this one is still built around the 17-time win, but it's also that Cena's had to sell his soul because he knows that, or the idea that he knows deep down that he hasn't been able to get the job done in his last few attempts because he's just not at that level anymore. But so now he's got The Rock in his side and he's going to fight against the crowd's animosity towards him and win the title that way. That's more interesting. And Cody gets to be more and more of a babyface and seen as the protector of WWE, which is, a good long-term trajectory for him because he's at the end of the day seen as going to be gone from this company at the end of the year, and Cody's going to be the guy moving forward. So the more you can make him seem like the top star and the top babyface in the company through this feud, the better it is for WWE long-term.
I agree.
Fully agreed. So we're all going John Cena, and yes, we, of course, will see what happens on Saturday and Sunday. So WrestleMania, the card could change in the meantime, but I think other than the Randy Orton thing, it's probably all pretty much set in stone. Of course, if there are any changes, you could see some updates on the million different things that I'm putting out there, but smarkoutmoment.com, and I'll put some stuff up on EWN and all. So keep all that in mind. Keep in mind that we will have another round of the hot tags in some form and fashion. I still don't know exactly how or when or anything like that, because I might end up doing it tomorrow night while watching the TNA Unbreakable thing, or I don't know. It's all up in the air, but hot tags will come up in some fashion. And
there's a lot to talk about this week as well.
I mean, we got the Mariah May thing, we got the Jeff Cobb thing, we've got the
New Japan imploding.
Naito leaving New Japan.
And Bushi, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, that's already, like, I don't know what's happening with their AEW trademarked Summer Blockbuster. So that's something to like keep an eye on and stuff too. But in any case, assuming probably like mid-fall. Yeah.
Yeah.
No matter what it is that we're talking in any fashion, though, you could always chat up the Discord server. And as I said before, maybe there'll be some kind of like live chat thing going on for the Hall of Fame or something. The Hall of Fame starts at 1 a.m. I'll be fucking awake because I always am. But I don't know if anybody else is interested in checking that stuff out. And if they are, that might be a good place to hang out and just kind of, have like kind of a podcast, kind of not. I don't know. We'll see. I might end up putting that up on the YouTube channel too. That's all the more reason why you should have your email alerts set up, because you never know if something's just going to go live. We will, of course, also come back around at some point to the stand and deliver stuff. Maybe it's post show, maybe it's not. Maybe it's a super fast post show. I don't know. WWE is making this very difficult. But in any fashion, share your support on the different things that you can find on Fanboys Anonymous or Smark Out Moment, or the other things on anthonymango.com. Follow all the things under a mango tree and stay tuned. But also, while you're at it, follow what Rob and Callum are up to.
Yeah, I work for Fightful.com, so, that's a huge week for Fightful.com and all wrestling news sites. But really, the one you need to be checking out is Fightful.com. Say it one more time, Fightful.com. Callum?
Yep, you can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at WeekMaster14. Check out the Power Rankings. It's the last edition for this year or season prior to WrestleMania, because WrestleMania resets the Power Rankings based on what happens on that show. So I will so check out that one, see who finishes like top of the standings for this year. I think it's pretty obvious by now if you look at the league tables down there that, yeah, Cody Rhodes is going to be the top guy for this year, but follow along and see if they... What? Yeah, it's crazy.
Crazy.
Right?
The fuck you mean that there's not a higher spot for Grayson Waller?
I don't even know if Grayson Waller even made it on the Power Rankings. Yeah.
He might not have. It hasn't been a good year for him.
Which is crazy because like the Hardy Boys made it on the Power Rankings this year.
He was tag champion at one point. I think he made it.
Oh yeah, maybe. Well, I don't know, because like WrestleMania, there were a lot of matches, and so you might have missed out on that one because there were a lot of people that got a lot of matches on that show. So we'll see. And Stand and Deliver also counts into that as well. So yeah, we'll check out all of that. Check out all that stuff, and also check out the Fantasy League, which also ends this year's season at WrestleMania. Of course, there'll be double points available on that show. It is still fairly close. I think that the likelihood is that Rob is going to win. He's definitely still on the in front leading into the show, but a lot of things can change, and WrestleMania, depending on if few results go one of mine or Tony's way, then we could catch back up. I think it'll be close, but yeah, I think that follow it along, and then you'll find out either on WrestleMania or slightly after that who has won for the year, and then we'll be setting up at some point for the next edition of the Fantasy League and see if there'll be a new format, see if there'll be some sort of changes moving forward as well. But yeah, make sure you follow that along at www.fantasyleague.com.
I'll just say this. I think this time around AEW should probably be included somehow.
Doesn't really work with WWE Fantasy League if you put AEW in it.
By AEWFantasyLeague.com.
Volunteer me to spend another
volunteer.
Yeah, that's right. I did.
Hey, Tony, you can buy AEW, right? I can just do that.
I wish.
Have our own fantasy league with blackjack and hookers.
The contract says Tony, but it doesn't say Tony Khan.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll see how that shapes up at the end of the year as well.
All right, everybody. So all these things, I'm putting up the wrong graphic now. I got the Blueprint Project up for some reason. Check out Blueprint Project stuff. Yeah. And that's going to do us in for WrestleMania and the Pay-Per-Viewpoint predictions side of it. We will come back around, of course, for the live coverage on smarkoutmoment.com. Sorry, had to fix something with my Invisalign. On the Saturday and Sunday shows. And, we'll have our fun in one way or another. The show could be great. It could have some highs, some lows. We'll review it all with the post shows immediately following those on Saturday and Sunday night. So stay tuned for all those things and everything else coming your way. And for now, that's going to do us in. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.